The story begins with a white-haired man who is serving his death sentence by beheading. But before the executioner executed him, he first asked if he had any last wishes or not. The white hair answered that he didn't have any request. Then there was a fat man who was watching the beheading with two of his aides. It seemed that the fat man was a leader in that place. Then the executioner, without hesitation, immediately slashed his sword at the white-haired boy's neck. But the sword he was going to use didn't work at all. He kept doing it, but the result was the same. The sword didn't even hurt the white-haired boy's neck at all. What surprised him even more was that the sword the executioner was using actually broke. Suddenly, the people who witnessed it looked surprised. The white hair just sighed. Looks like it's not the first time this has happened. Even he himself was tired of living. He just wanted to die because he had killed many people. Finally, he felt that he was no longer interested in this life. Apparently, before the death penalty process, the white hair was first interrogated in prison by a woman. From there, we know that the original name of the white fiber is Gabimaru. He was born as a shinobi from the village of Iwagakure. From childhood, he had learned high-level killing techniques. From this strenuous training, many shinobi fail and even lose their lives, and those who manage to escape will gain extraordinary body resistance. Even for Iwagakure shinobi, breaking swords with their limbs is a natural thing. Back to executing Gabimaru for the second time, because the first method failed. This time they tried the second method by burning Gabimaru alive, who believed that this technique was the most powerful technique for killing people. Then, after everything was ready, without further ado, Gabimaru was immediately burned alive. But again and again, everyone was surprised to see Gabimaru coming out of the fire grave without any injuries. Later that night, Gabimaru was again interrogated by the same woman. Gabimaru instead said that he wasn't trying to fight back. He even wanted to be killed. Then the woman asked about his background. Then he told her that his parents were killed by the head of his own village when he was a baby. He didn't even feel anything when he saw his parents die before him. According to him, a shinobi doesn't have big goals. We only kill according to orders. It turns out that Gabimaru was betrayed by his friends while on duty, and finally he was caught. Gabimaru thought it was all the orders of the head of his village because he had a plan to leave his village. But he did not reveal why he wanted to leave his village. Then, the next day, Gabimaru was executed again, using another method. This time, the legs will be pulled in opposite directions by two large cows. But after that method was done, again, failed to kill Gabimaru. The strength of the two big cows not strong enough to tear Gabimaru's body. After the third execution failed, the woman who used to interrogate Gabimaru seemed to realize something. Gabimaru fought back when he wanted to be executed, but didn't Gabimaru say that he wanted to die? Then this woman again asked Gabimaru, why did he want to leave his village? He wanted to leave his village because the daughter of the village head was betrothed to him. It turns out that the princess is a cunning and naive person. Even because of the princess, he has to do things she doesn't like, such as praying and taking off his shoes when entering the house and so on. Because it really changed his life. He said if he lived like that, his abilities could grow. Because of that, Gabimaru finally had the courage to talk to the head of his village if he wanted to leave his daughter. Of course, this made the village head angry and intended to kill him. Then at night, a bodyguard reminded the woman to be careful with Gabimaru, because out there Gabimaru is known as Gabimaru the Hollow, a man who likes to kill without blood and tears. He killed 20 people at once without any guilt before he was finally caught. Even according to rumors, high-level shinobi in Iwagakure have drunk the elixir of immortality that comes from Shin. That's why Gabimaru can't die. The next day, the execution failed again. Even though he was fried alive in hot oil, it also made Gabimaru wonder why he didn't die. The leader of the place was very emotional to see Gabimaru who did not die, until finally the woman came, then told me that the preparations were complete. Then, not long after that, Gabimaru was taken by the guards to a secret room. It turns out that after he arrived in the room, Gabimaru saw the woman earlier, who was already fully dressed as a samurai. It turned out that the woman was a swordsman sent from Edo. That woman was an executioner. Yamada Asaemon. This Asaemon family is a family whose swordsmanship is considered the best in the world. Seeing that, Gabimaru was made to shiver in fear. He even felt that his neck had been cut. Then Gabimaru reflexively removed his hands from the wooden shackles. He even dodged a sword attack from Sagiri. It turns out that Sagiri's attack injured Gabimaru and made his neck bleed. Gabimaru thought to himself, "Am I going to die today?" With a very panicked face, Asagiri attacked again. Gabimaru managed to avoid it again, but it turns out that Sagiri knows a fact that actually Gabimaru doesn't hate his wife. She even really loves Gabimaru, and it turns out that it's all true. Gabimaru really enjoys life with his wife. Therefore, he always fought when executed. Then, angrily, Gabimaru attacked Sagiri, saying, "Shut up, I have no interest whatsoever." It turned out that Gabimaru really loved his wife, even though her face had been disfigured by her father, the village head, even changing his life to make money by killing humans. He wants to live a normal life with his wife. A very fierce fight ensued. They both swung each other's swords. But in the middle of the fight, Asagiri finally took out a scroll containing the forgiveness of crimes. Anything will be forgiven as long as Gabimaru can take his wife away with him without fear of being hurt by the village head, because he will get protection from the shoguns. Hearing this, Gabimaru fell silent. He couldn't believe it. But the scroll cannot be given for free. There are conditions that must be met. Gabimaru must go to a world full of fertility and joy without any pain, similar to a fairyland. Because of that, many people were sent there to get it. But they never came back again until finally the leader of the shogun gave orders to send heavy criminals from all over the world to the island, and anyone who could bring the potion would be given forgiveness. Asagiri was the one sent to find a candidate, and he chose Gabimaru. Asagiri also told him that his wife was still in Iwagakure and waiting for his return. One way for Gabimaru to meet his wife is by going to the island and bringing the potion home. Gabimaru finally accepted the offer so he could be reunited with his wife. But the fat leader was not willing if Sagiri took him alive. He also ordered his subordinates to attack Sagiri and Gabimaru. But Gabimaru didn't stay silent this time. He took out his fire elemental ninjutsu, and in an instant he managed to beat them all. Then Asagiri told Gabimaru to get ready to go, because they will go to Edo first. In Sagiri's past memories, at that time she was watching her father, who was carrying out the execution process. The death row convict asked to be beheaded when he was telling a story. Then Sagiri's father granted his request, and that's when he was telling Sagiri's father, without hesitation, immediately slashed his head until it broke. The execution also looks very perfect. The death row inmates do not feel the slightest pain and emotion. Little Sagiri, who saw this incident, was immediately obsessed and wanted to have the same skills as her father, until in the end, when she grew up, she carried out her first beheading procession. However, this time the death row convict looked very scared and had to be held by 2 people. Then Asagiri carried out the execution process smoothly. Even the higher-ups who witnessed the process praised Sagiri's skills. But when Asagiri saw the bodies of those executed, she suddenly saw a terrible figure pulling her body. It seemed to be the curious spirit of the convict earlier. Then a man came up to her saying, "There is doubt and fear in your swordsmanship that it will cause pain to the death row inmate." Asagiri replied that she would improve her skills. However, the more Sagiri beheaded people, she still couldn't fix that flaw. Even she could see the anger and fear behind the blade of her sword. Asagiri still didn't know how to get rid of the doubt and fear in her heart. In the present time, the criminals are gathered together and confronted by a leader named Tokugawa Nariyoshi. The criminals gathered were not ordinary class criminals. Those collected will be sent to the island in search of the elixir of immortality. Because of Gabimaru's behavior of acting like a lazy person, Asagiri doubted the ability of Gabimaru, who tried to check on her. After seeing Gabimaru's shadow from within his sword, Sagiri was suddenly surprised to see Gabimaru's form, which had turned very terrible. Then the criminals were asked to uncover his face, showing a man whose body was growing horrible roots and flowers all over his body. It turned out to be the only person who made it back from the island. The man was no longer human. At first, mysterious lumps appeared on his body from the bumps blooming mysterious flowers and roots earlier. Of the 60 people sent, the rest disappeared without a word, and even the shoguns couldn't explain what happened to the man or what happened to him. The criminals were frightened when the situation was getting tense. One of the criminals asked, what if the elixir of immortality called mention never existed? Then the shoguns answered that if they were unsure or didn't want to join, they were welcome to leave. Hearing that, one of the big criminals decided not to participate and immediately moved away. But when he had just walked a few steps, suddenly his neck was slashed by the Yamada clan. One of the officials explained that all of them, when they were on the island, would continue to be watched by the samurai. Said the Yamada clan Asemon, when they dare to do anything, their heads will be cut off immediately. But when their overseer dies due to an accident or is killed, they will also be immediately beheaded. So if they don't go home with their supervisor, they will certainly die. It didn't end there. One of the high-ranking officials informed him that not all criminals who were present could come to the island because of the capacity of the ship. Hearing this, the criminals immediately killed each other in order to get a slot to go to the island. A very brutal battle was inevitable. These criminals with their special abilities kill each other. But it looked like Gabimaru was just dumbfounded and silent in the middle of the fight. Sagiri, who witnessed the brutality that was in front of him, looked very nervous. The engine beside Sagiri realized that he told Asagiri that on the island it would be even more brutal, so if Asagiri is still unsure and afraid, it's better not to come. After all, Sagiri is princesses like, why are you here and carrying powder? That's not befitting a princess. But at this time still with his desire to come to the island. It turns out that in the past, Sagiri was often bullied because she came from the Yamada clan, which was famous for killing for money. Even more sadistic, the Yamada clan uses torches from the human corpses they kill. Suddenly, when the criminal was about to attack Sagiri and grabbed his sword, seeing that permission tried to protect Sagiri, but Asagiri asked him to step aside and let him fight the 3 criminals. When he was about to fight him again, Asagiri felt the doubts and fear return, making him speechless. But he managed to overcome his fear and immediately slashed the heads of the 3 criminals. But I still can't help feeling guilty. He still feels haunted by the people he killed. How could killing that person be fine? Said Gabimaru. Asagiri realized that with the words just now, it turned out that Gabimaru refused to kill the criminals in front of him because he did not want to kill without a reason. Plus, Gabimaru wants to retire as an assassin, but Gabimaru's wishes are not accepted by the top officials. At that time, the higher-ups ordered other criminals to kill Gabimaru, and he promised to send them if he could kill. Seeing Maru's small stature, the criminals immediately got excited to kill him. They directly attacked from Maru. At first, Gabimaru didn't want to serve them, but because Gabimaru didn't want to die, he had to fight them like it or not. Gabimaru walked lazily towards them. In an instant, Gabimaru attacked them brutally, then killed them. Everyone immediately fell silent, seeing Gabimaru's action beyond reason. He managed to finish off the criminals with his bare hands. Asagiri was speechless. He finally understood that what he really needed was not the strength not to be afraid to kill, but the determination to bear the fear and guilt for the life he had taken. After understanding that, Asagiri, who was crying, she said, "Asagiri, are you okay? I knew this responsibility was too heavy for you." But Asagiri immediately wiped her tears, then replied that she was fine. Not long after that, the higher-ups announced that the remaining 10 criminals would be dispatched to the island. Then, long story short, their journey begins by using a boat to go to the location and to get the elixir of immortality. This time we are shown the memories of Gabimaru when he was little. At that time he saw the head of the village of Iwagakure, who was stabbed by many swords which made his entrails and head come out, but he still stood and smiled as if nothing had happened. Because of that incident, Gabimaru was sure that the immortality elixir was real, and the village head was the only person who drank it. But at this time, it seems not 100% sure if the potion really exists. Then Gabimaru immediately told me that the potion really existed. The elixir of immortality is called Tokijiku no Admiring, although Gabimaru himself cannot confirm whether or not the elixir exists on the island. Arriving on the island, they walked into the forest. It turns out that in the forest all the plants are not the same between one and another. Seeing the scene in front of him, Sagiri felt opened, but Gabimaru asked him to stay alert because everything he saw was unnatural. Then Gabimaru untied the rope in his hand, but Asagiri immediately forbade it because of the rules that criminals should not untie their hands while on the island. Of course, Gabimaru immediately protested. How could he fight with tied hands, let alone their food and water rations, only for 3 days? Not to mention the instructions are just unclear pictures. But Sagiri still forced Gabimaru to do it. He even threatened with a sword. Asagiri immediately emphasized again that he was an executioner. If Gabimaru later failed to bring the potion, then he would immediately cut off his head. Finally, very forced to get Gabimaru to agree to the order, Asagiri said that he would do anything as long as he could meet his wife again. When his hands were being tied by Sagiri, suddenly a giant iron ball hit Gabimaru's head and sent him flying away. It turns out that it was the work of a criminal named Kyun. Seeing that, especially when he saw his supervisor who didn't care at all about what had happened. But Gabimaru casually stood up and said, "Wow, I'm surprised." Then Asagiri told who the person he was going to face. It turned out to be a warrior monk who was crazy about guns. Even rumors he was stealing hundreds of guns from other soldiers he killed. But Gabimaru even protested, "Why aren't Kyun's hands tied like him?" Asagiri immediately asked Kiso about it, but Kiso answered that Asagiri was too rigid with the rules. He can tie it again when he wants to go home. According to Kiso, Asagiri was a person who was too honest because that was what made Asagiri among the executioners in the lowest position. Impatient with Gabimaru, he immediately cut off their conversation and confronted Gabimaru with a sad face. Gabimaru answered the challenge. Then the cloth immediately attacked Gabimaru without thinking. When Gabimaru tried to fight him, Asagiri told Gabimaru to tie his hands first. Then suddenly the wood hit Gabimaru's body hard, but Gabimaru didn't seem to feel anything. He still continued to tie his hands. His opponent kept beating him with various kinds of weapons, but the result was the same. The weapon was destroyed. Finally, Gabimaru managed to tie his hands. After that, Gabimaru immediately kicked until he was stretched, even though his hands were tied. Looks like Brother Yun is not a match for Gabimaru. With a short, brutal time, Kiso immediately cut off his head and took him away. Before Kiso left, he reminded Asagiri that a few hours from now the situation would turn even more dire. It turns out that Kiso's words were true because it seems that the enzyme has been killed by some criminals and they have killed each other. Appoint a new leader based on their success in the mission, this time so some I beg will do everything possible to win this challenge while moving away Kiso back, reminding Asagiri to be careful with Gabimaru and unexpectedly when Sagiri is alone. Gabimaru immediately attacked Sagiri. It seemed that this time Gabimaru really wanted to kill Asagiri. "Shut up. I want to kill you without pain," said Gabimaru. Then Asagiri reminds Gabimaru if he wants to kill him, then he will break the rules and won't be able to go home. But Gabimaru doesn't care about that anymore. It looks like Gabimaru has changed because of the info from the story earlier about the shoguns who will send Iwagakure shinobi to the island. Then the fight between Gabimaru and Sagiri ensued again. But it looks like they can't fight seriously because they seem to be thinking about something. Asagiri and Gabimaru were still hesitant to kill in the middle of the fight, but were embarrassed to remember the village head's words. After that, Gabimaru's eyes turned sadistic and more serious about killing Sagiri, until finally Sagiri was completely powerless again, and Gabimaru prepared to end his life. But when he was about to stick his sword again and again, Gabimaru hesitated and suddenly his wife's shadow reappeared, which prevented Gabimaru from doing that cruel thing. Trembled then, his tears fell. Asagiri, who saw this, immediately realized that Gabimaru was just an ordinary human who has feelings and not the emptiness that people call him. Finally sheathed the sword that Gabimaru was holding, while saying that Gabimaru's feelings were not a weakness, but also a strength to survive and fight. After hearing Sagiri's words, finally, Gabimaru could accept his current situation. Then suddenly a monster with a fish head appeared in front of Gabimaru, and Sagiri, who was ready to kill him, looked confused when he saw the figure in front of him. He felt that the shape of the creature was unrealistic, aka ridiculous. His head is in the shape of a fish, but he has hands wearing prayer bracelets. Instinct said that this monster was very dangerous. Then Gabimaru immediately attacked the creature. But it turns out that the monster is not weak. Even the monster can slam Gabimaru's body. Seeing that, Asagiri was worried, but Gabimaru told him to stay away. Gabimaru remembers the message from the head of the village of Iwagakure that a shinobi cannot fight an enemy he doesn't know. So it made him want to leave the monster alone. But he was confused whether to go alone or take Sagiri. Daydreaming about that, the monster attacked Gabimaru and managed to make him bleed. Then Asagiri was shocked because it turned out that Gabimaru could be injured like that. At that moment, they were surprised by the giant titans with scary, smiling faces around them, who looked panicked and immediately tried to calm themselves and not lose their heads. But Gabimaru has different thoughts. Without further ado, Gabimaru immediately goes berserk and chases the titan with his extraordinary moves. On the other hand, Sagiri, who was daydreaming, was suddenly attacked by one of the titans. But fortunately, he was able to avoid actually looking at the desperate Sagiri. But he didn't want to help Sagiri and chose to focus on the enemy in front of him. Then he attacked using his mind's eye only, but apparently didn't notice that he ran towards and killed the attacking monsters. Gabimaru didn't expect that this could happen. He thought why he instinctively chose to save himself because of that, they almost got hit by a fish-headed monster. Luckily, some help came to save them. It turns out that it's the Yuzuriya team, a criminal kunoichi who is a big fan of Gabimaru. Oddly enough, he was escorted by 2 executioners. Moreover, he looks angry because they took his enemy. But he remembered the message from his wife: if he was helped by people, he should be grateful. Finally, politely, Gabimaru thanked him. She, who was already amazed by Gabimaru, immediately approached him and seduced him. She even invited Gabimaru to work together. Gabimaru immediately twisted his hand and said that he already knew that the seduction method would not work on him. Curious, immediately asked why he was escorted by 2 executioners at once. Then Genji told him that the criminal he was guarding had died because Yurisiha had fooled him. So he decided to go with Yurisiha because he felt she was very dangerous. Meanwhile, the original surveillance again invites Gabimaru to work together. But Gabimaru asked, what's the benefit of him cooperating? Told him that he had gathered information about the island and was willing to share information with Gabimaru, for example, about insects with scary faces which were very dangerous. Even according to Yurisiha, these insects were much more dangerous than the Titan monster earlier because their scales contained poisonous compounds that could kill and make them hallucinate. He could know that because he made a criminal named Kamiya as an experimental object. Then Santa added information that the statues on the island were a mixture of Buddhist and Taoist traditions, so he was doubtful. It was really unnatural, so he doubted whether this place deserved to be called heaven. Gabimaru, who was curious about Yurisiha wanting to survive to such an extent, then Yurisiha told that she was doing this for the sake of her sister, who was seriously ill, and she had to find money for her medical expenses. However, Gabimaru knows that Yurisiha is lying because she mispronounced Shinobi Village. Because his lie was exposed, he finally admitted that he didn't have any goals, he just didn't want to die in vain while he was young, because Gabimaru needed information and had no other choice. Finally, he decided to work with Yurisiha. Sagiri was unconscious, then fell unconscious. Shown the background of an executioner Asimon named Toma. This Toma has a brilliant career, just joined for 1 month but is already a dark representative, so he is sent to carry out executions that ask specifically to be able to execute the criminal of his choice. Finally, Toma and try hand in hand to get the elixir of immortality. Their current situation was being surrounded by the Titans. One of the Titans spoke to them. Killing is a sin. Insects have lives. Fish have lives too. It made them both surprised because the Titan could talk. Then Toma thought that those monsters were gods. Try to immediately get scared, but it's different from trying to immediately understand the situation. He immediately slaughtered all the Titans alone. After that, Koba immediately said to Toma that the immortality potion seemed to really exist in this place because the ones guarding it were terrible monsters. Even those monsters could talk. You're trying to say if they find the potion, then they'll be the ones to drink it. Then Toma could only get his brother with a gaze full of admiration. In the dream, Sagiri saw her father, who was looking at her with a terrible look. At that time, he immediately woke up from his fainting breath. Then Genji told him that Sagiri was hit by a poison butterfly, and they were resting in a hollow tree. Knowing that they were actually taking a break, Asagiri immediately remembered that he had to accompany Gabimaru. When he came out of the tree, he was surprised to see Gabimaru relaxing while preparing food. Then Asagiri was confused why Gabimaru could relax. That's because since yesterday he was in a hurry about time and was afraid that the Iwagakure forces would rush to attack the island. But Asagiri's question still remained unanswered. Senta immediately invited them all to chat while eating food made by Gabimaru. After that, Euryssia asked if Gabi had just learned something about the elixir of immortality. Even though he knows a little, Gabimaru doesn't want to give any information to Euryssia. He added that they all should not get hung up on the picture of the elixir of immortality because the picture might not match reality. They should be able to think about why this island could be like this. Who made the Buddha statues or knew that, and how did they do it, and were they the original inhabitants of the island here? Then added that the monsters they killed had no internal organs or reproductive organs. Even though the body is the same as a human, but the head is always in the shape of an animal, and then calls them like gods. Too unreasonable to be called a natural being, aka outside reason, but too artificial or fake to be called a mystical product either. Everything is too mysterious and incomprehensible. Gabimaru even concludes that if there are creatures that live without organs, it means that the elixir of immortality really exists on this island. If he can find it, then crime will be forgiven. Then Senta said that they have to check again the monsters on this island, where and how the monsters live. Only then can they find clues to get the elixir of immortality. Then one afternoon, when Asagiri was daydreaming, he was visited by Genji telling Asagiri to just go home and leave this island. Then he will replace his task to accompany because he is worried that Asagiri will die on this island. Because the daughter of a clan head, she has an obligation to marry another clan head's child. Of course, Asagiri refused orders from Genji because according to her as a princess, she was obliged to complete her duties. But Genji has the view that Asagiri will not be able to kill Gabimaru, especially since the sword he is holding is not his, because his sword had been broken against Gabimaru yesterday. According to Genji, that sword is someone's heart. Samurai and Asagiri have lost something as important as that. On the sidelines of their chat, love suddenly came and separated them. Senta even doubted whether they all made it out of the island because in the past, no samurai could come back alive. On the other hand, 2 people are seen trying to escape from the island. They are Tenza and Naruga. Yes, it is not a criminal who is guilty, so they choose to escape from the island rather than die. Then, in the middle of their journey, they saw a large ship in front of them. They thought it was a ship, but when they approached it, it was the wreck of the samurai ships trying to escape from the island. Then they both felt that there was a creature stalking them. Suddenly, they were immediately destroyed by a terrible creature that emerged from under the sea. Then they decided to find another ship to leave immediately from there. They ran over the wrecks. Then they announced Iso is dead from flower poison. Then suddenly the sea monster attacked Kiso's body and split it into 2. Seeing Kiso's body that was split open, he imagined his grandfather, whose fate was the same as Kiso's. It made him weak to want to just give up, then told his partner to leave him. But he didn't want to leave it, then fought the monsters while fighting the monsters. He immediately got up and fought monsters because he did not want to die in vain. See a boat that can still be used. Then they both hand in hand to reach the ship. They both managed to reach the shore of the island again, although his body was injured and covered in blood. They realized that the ocean currents that surrounded the island always headed back to the coast, and that the island was surrounded by dangerous monsters, so it was also impossible for the residents to get in and out of the island alive. When they were cleaning the body, it turned out that they suspected a woman, even without hesitation showing her twin mountains. Of course, he immediately panicked and immediately closed his eyes, especially since Nurugai asked him to marry him. Then, at night, Asagiri came to Gabimaru, who was sitting alone. Gabimaru immediately asked about Sagiri's condition. It turned out that Gabimaru was worried because yesterday's insects spread in his body faster and faster. But Asagiri finally knows why Gabimaru is so relaxed. It turns out that Gabimaru wants him to recover first. Then Gabimaru explained that he owed booty to Sagiri because his words made Gabimaru calmer and his determination became more rounded. But Maru also didn't care if the other party sent shinobi to the island because he would face them one by one. Then Gabimaru praised Sagiri when in fact he was very strong, especially during his previous fight while in prison, in essence saying that Asagiri had something special. It was just that he lacked experience. Hearing this made him shocked and seemed to realize something. The next day, Asagiri met Genji and decided to seek experience on this island so that he would become even stronger. It seems this is because of what Gabimaru said last night, because he doesn't want to be looked down upon again. She wants to be seen as a samurai, not a princess. Then Asagiri knelt in front of Genji and apologized because she had disobeyed her senior's orders. Genji, who had lost his patience, immediately attacked Sagiri, who knelt in front of him, but Asagiri swiftly grabbed Genji's sword. Genji got even angrier and took his sword again. Suddenly, a Rokurota appeared behind him in an instant, attacking Genji and injuring his stomach. Finally, seeing Genji, who was seriously injured by the attack, he immediately ordered Asagiri to run away from there because his life could no longer be saved. But suddenly he was confused about who this person really was. Gabimaru recalled the message from the head of his village who had said to always measure and analyze the abilities of the enemy. Then, after a few attacks earlier, he realized that physically he was far behind, of course. Gabimaru also asked for Yurisiha's help to join the attack, but apparently Yurisiha didn't want to help him. According to the agreement, he only takes care of information, while the fight is Gabimaru's part. With annoyance, finally, Gabimaru had to fight Kurota's spirit alone, then he would surely die. Then Gabimaru decided to attack from a long distance, but this attack still didn't work. When tending to Genji's wound, Genji said that Asagiri had a gentle nature. Then Genji gave his sword to Sagiri. Genji didn't tell Asagiri to run anymore and told him to fight the spirit like a samurai, asking him to cut the spirit. Gabimaru, who was looking for a way to distract the spirit, suddenly Sagiri came and slashed the spirit's finger until it broke. Sagiri said that attacking the proper tendons and muscles of the body, no matter how hard it could be cut by it. That was the principle of Yamada's swordsmanship. No one will get close to it, even though the fight between Gabimaru and it caused a tremendous commotion. Then Gabimaru told Sagiri to cut off his head, he would make it impermeable. Then he realized that now he was not happy. A little emotion, then he tried to focus again. Suddenly they heard a roar. It looked like he was already starving while attacking because the sound of crying alone was very loud. That caught Gabimaru off guard, and the spirit's attack hit him too late, but apparently Gabimaru was still able to stand up again, but a lot of blood coming out of his mouth. Gabimaru, who was unable to move, was about to be punched by Kurota's spirit. Sagiri immediately ran and tried to save Gabimaru, but seeing that huge spirit hand, he briefly panicked and lost his focus. But fortunately, he was able to refocus, then parry. His sword strike everyone there acknowledged Sagiri's prowess. But he just lacks experience, even though his sword skills are stronger than even the top expert swords. In the end, he managed to make the spirit fall. But when he was about to slash his head, the spirit managed to dodge. Gabimaru finally decided to use his ultimate technique. Gabimaru used his fire elemental moves to attack repeatedly. But it turns out that the attack was not to attack Kurota's spirit, but to burn the forest around them. He wanted to make a lot of smoke to suffocate the spirit. Moreover, that smoke has carbon dioxide, which is poisonous with his big body. He will inhale more smoke than others. And sure enough, not long after that, Kurota's spirit starts to shortness of breath and collapses. Seeing Kurota's spirit that had collapsed, Asagiri immediately prepared to slash his head. Then, to prevent him from dodging, Gabimaru held his hand and focused. Asagiri directly slashed the head of the spirit. After being gently slashed as he finally rubbed his head and told him to rest in peace. Finally, they managed to defeat the terrible spirit, and because it was surrounded by fire, Gabimaru immediately invited Sagiri to run away from there. While running, Sagiri sad because he could not carry Genji's body and bury it properly. Then, after running quite far, they stopped for a moment. Gabimaru saw the monsters moving towards the source of the fire he had made. He thought he felt strange about it because scientifically living things should avoid fire, but they approached him instead. Gabimaru immediately lost his breath. He realized that they had to inevitably go towards the Titan monster that was coming, but wanted to feel that the elixir of immortality was definitely there. After a while, they ran. They saw Eurisia and Senta, who had already run away. Eurisia and Senta looked surprised to see the scene in front of them. It turns out they both saw that there was a former village in that place. They finally believe that this island is inhabited by humans. How sacred, according to the rumored myth. The hermits are often seen as superhuman. Their form resembles that of an old man, and they master mysterious moves. They are also said to be immortal, aka immortal. Then, somewhere else in the forest, they accidentally meet two beautiful girls who are having sex. Saw the two girls. This time, one of the girls in the ruins stopped her activities because she saw Toma coming. He immediately asked why any human could come to that place. But the girl with the pink hair instead asked Toma to join in the makeout with them, but the blonde-haired girl immediately got angry, and her body turned into a muscular boy. Then he tried to kill Toma. On the other hand, Gabimaru, who was observing the abandoned village, suddenly felt that someone was stalking him. Gaimaru immediately chased the figure that was trying to catch him, which turned out to be a cute little girl. But when he won it, suddenly a tree monster attacked. Gabimaru felt that the girl knew a lot about that island. He didn't want to miss the opportunity to ask him and still tried to catch him. He immediately ran past the monster and handed over to Sagiri, and the others instead ran after Gabimaru. He handed over the monster to Eurisia. Asagiri feels that his job is to look after Gabimaru. Eurisia, who heard this immediately, took off Shinta's glasses. Shinta was confused why Eurisia did that. While drinking the potion she brought, Eurisia answered that she wants to do a jutsu and she doesn't want to lose. He said that he wanted to test his secret technique. Can the ninjutsu work against the monsters on the island? On the other hand, Gabimaru managed to approach the little girl. But unexpectedly, the girl managed to slam Gabimaru so easily she was immediately shocked. She didn't expect that being so small had such a high level of fighting techniques. Asagiri then tries another approach this time, telling the girl that they don't want to hurt her and just want to talk to her. It turns out that Sagiri's method worked. The girl immediately stopped her run. Asagiri immediately approached the girl, but it turned out that the girl had already prepared an attack with her shining fist. But luckily, Gabimaru swiftly held the little girl's punch. The punch was too strong to make Gabimaru auto-bleed. Then, because Gabimaru's patience was running out, using Gabimaru's roots, he immediately tied the girl up and then hung her up. Saw Gabimaru in such a terrible mode that the little girl immediately cried and immediately told him to put the girl down gently and calm her down. this little girl was still an innocent child, came with the tree monster they had defeated. Then they decided to ask the little girl about the elixir of immortality. After the girl stopped crying, but suddenly the tree monster rose again and begged them to return the little girl. Instead, the tree monsters would tell them everything they wanted to know. He will also drive them to a nearby village to rest. At first, they were hesitant to accept the monster's offer for fear of being framed. But as soon as they found out that there was no bathtub in the village earlier, they were all excited and immediately wanted to go to the village. Then on the way to the girl's house, he finally thought that Gabimaru was basically not a bad person, and little by little had started to change. But Gabimaru himself seems impatient with all this. He wants to quickly get the potion and then free his wife from the clutches of the village head of Iwagakure.